whoa, I'm having a really big, strong emotional reaction to this, and I don't know why. Why is this affecting me so much? What does it make it difficult to do right now? What does it feel like your body's trying to do? We're really clever. And so what we learn to do, we do in our brain and we do it in our body. We compartmentalize things. Hello everybody, I'm Catriona Morten. I'm a sensorimotor psychotherapist. And today I'd like to talk about how emotion and memory gets trapped inside our body. Before I jump into that, if you're enjoying these videos, then please give us a like and subscribe to the channel, because it really helps us get our message out there to loads more people. Do you ever wonder how suddenly things can really impact us and make us feel really emotional, kind of out the blue, or just sudden surges of emotion can come up? You know, today I'm just really emotional. Things just seem to be really affecting me. Now, all kinds of different things can affect our capacity for emotion. You know, if we're ill, if we're tired, if we've got a lot going on, if there's an awful lot of stress, then yes, things affect us that we would normally just kind of, glance off and not bother us. But there can be other things that lie underneath. Sometimes when we have these surges of emotion and things just hit us, and it's like, whoa, I'm having a really big, strong emotional reaction to this, and I don't know why. Why is this affecting me so much? Well, it could be an old trauma wound, or just a memory or emotion that we get trapped in the body. And I don't mean that in a kind of negative way. It's just how we store information. If we think about the memories that are really strong, that really impact us, the memories that are really easy to recall, when someone says, oh, do you remember? Oh my God, yes. It's because we've had an emotional connection to it. We've had an emotional reaction to it. And it impacts us, and we remember that impact, and we remember that experience of how we felt. And it's, feeling through emotion and feeling through our entire body, our entire being will be impacted and affected. And, when that's at a high level, then those memories stay really strong and they remain. Because we can't be continually bombarded with pokes and trauma memory and just, lived experience memory coming up, we're really clever. And so what we learn to do, we do in our brain and we do it in our body. We compartmentalize things. We have all these different places in our brain that we can store different memories. Our hippocampus is like a library. When we're like, oh, hang on, you're trucking through your hippocampus looking for the bits of information. I know it's in there, just give me a minute, just give me a minute. And we have all these different ways of getting to the information that we want. Well, the body does the same thing. The whole of the impact will actually be stored in a certain part of our body. This is completely unconscious. We don't know, this isn't a deliberate thing. It's just a brilliant way that we're designed, that we're able to do this. And in a way, thank goodness, because if we have a lot of trauma memory and a lot of traumatic events, then we can't be overwhelmed, our whole system, by these all the time. And so they will reside in a particular part of our body. And these things can be poked, but we might not realize that that's what's been poked and why we're having such a reaction to it. It's an emotional and a physical reaction. We might be feeling just so overwhelmed about something that's really quite small that we have to remove ourselves from it. It's like, oh, I've got to go, I've got to get away, or I just need some air. It can be a real mystery to our head of what on earth is going on there. If things have been overwhelming or traumatic, and if we've had a freeze response to something, or if it's so overwhelming we dissociate, our body's still there. I've dealt with a lot of wounds that people have come to me with following an operation, a general anaesthetic, because We're not conscious, we're completely out, but our body is experiencing this. When we dissociate, our body is still there, undergoing whatever is happening. If we're frozen, then the impact of what's going on is imprinting on our body. The thing that has made us so overwhelmed that we've had to freeze, those things, underneath, they're all there. The triggers are there, the locked, frozen emotion is there, the physiological things that have impacted, the physical impact of all of these things is felt within the body. It's happening in real time. We're just not conscious of it. And all of these different experiences, not just traumatic events, but all kinds of things, we store them in different parts of our body. Now, when it's suppressed anger or something that's really locked in because we've frozen or we're dissociated, those things can cause real problems. If they're always tight within our body, our shoulders, our neck, they're places that store a lot, our back, our lower back. And when we have that kind of contraction, then over time it can get very problematic for the body. And the body often needs ways and means to help it release. And there's a load of different ways that we can do that. Kinesiology, craniosacral work, SE work, somatic experiencing, sensorimotor work, yoga, Tai Chi. There's all different kinds of ways of being able to connect, notice, work through and process what's happening in our body. But sometimes we need to be able to observe, track and follow to make sense of, well, where are these wounds? What is it that happened that is causing, this tension in my neck or my arms to go numb and to not feel like I've got arms, or when they clench themselves into our sides and then feel very scared to move apart. It's like, okay, what is that? And we'll feel the emotion with it, but we won't make any sense of it. Now, sometimes just sensing in when this kind of activation comes up, often I'll encourage people, it's like, okay, I'm just going to ask you to really sense into that, to take all of your awareness to that place. Maybe close your eyes or, just be aware, what's the quality of that sensation? What kind of space does it take up? Does it feel rigid or solid? Is it pulsing? Is it moving? Is there an energy to it? And sometimes when we really observe, it's like, okay, so your body's really contracting right now. What's it like to have a contracting body? We might even ask about, when you sense into that place, does it have a colour? How intense is it? How is it communicating itself to you? Sometimes from that place, a memory can pop up that makes perfect sense as to what's happening in your body. Because your body knows what this is, just because we might not have the memory. And sometimes we don't need the memory. But for a lot of people, it helps just join those dots. It's like, oh my goodness, well, that makes complete sense. Of course. Or we can do it the other way around and we say, okay, so when you remember that, when you start talking about that or just thinking about that thing, what story is your body telling in relation to that? What's it doing right now? When you can learn to notice it, track it, follow it, stay with it, understand if your arms are tight, what does it make it difficult to do right now? What does it feel like the body's trying to do? Because there's always a purpose to it, but the sense, the purpose is from back then. It's not from right now. Right now, your body in all these different stored places is having a reaction to something that's poked it from way back then. And it can help us, one, really make sense of how things have affected us, both physically and emotionally. If we're poked and we've got a big emotional response to it, there's a backstory. There's something that's kind of feeding that. If it's really a bit too much for what's just happened, it's like, okay, well, it might be worth just going back and having a look and seeing what's coming up. You know, when we can track and follow, the body can be an amazing source of information. It's got its own narrative to tell. And I'm always sticking up for the body and saying it's not doing this to make your life difficult. It's doing this because it's a genuine response to something that's happened, sometimes way back. Sometimes we do have a memory of it, sometimes we don't, but this does. And that felt sense memory, if it's something that's, you know, getting in the way, that's making life difficult, okay, then we'll process it. And we can process it just by working with it and allowing it to do what it needs to do, or we can process it with EMDR. Sometimes when I do EMDR with people, there's no memory, there's just body sensation. Sometimes there's body sensation and then, a memory that kind of goes with it will come up. But not every time. But this has its own stored places. And often when we sense into a different part of our body, if I see something moving, I go, oh, I'm really curious about that. Your shoulder seems to be pulling back there. I wonder what's that in response to? And we can do experiments with it and say, you know, oh, well, what's it like when you put a hand on that place? Or what's it like as you try and bring it forward? Often then, a big surge of emotion will come up and people will say, I have no idea what that's about. It's like, doesn't matter. It's there, it's real, we just go for it. And we never ever tell ourselves, our body, our brain that we're doing anything wrong. We're always curious about it. It's like, wow, that's a big response. There's something really important being held in there. And by following the body, following the narrative it's telling, helping to make sense of it, it can just help us process these things and have a much better understanding of why we react the way that we react. And it helps us take care of ourselves a little bit more and be a bit more compassionate and understanding. And that in turn, when we do that for ourselves, it also allows us to be able to do that much easier for other people, which is a win-win all round. So I hope that helps you make sense of things and it's interesting and makes you curious about things. And if you've enjoyed this video, then give us a like, subscribe to our channel, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye-bye.